computer. I'm recording the class. You're not recording the class. Everyone individually is not going to record the class. I'm recording the class, and then what will happen is I will um, put it up on a kind of a private channel on YouTube for about a week or a few days. I don't know if a week it may not even make it for a week, but it'll be up there approximately for about a week. And then I'm going to send that link to Aaron. But so most of you here won't need it. So that's what's going to happen with the recording process. Okay, everybody? Good, good. Well, it's nice to see some old friends, and including Philip is not an old friend. I can't really call him a friend. He's an enemy. He's a dire enemy. One of the big, bloodthirsty. And there, thank you for that. There you go. But all right. So listen. Anyways, I guess we'll get started. It's nice to see everyone. Oh, we have a cat joining the party. That's very nice, Yerko. Thank you for sharing a gato. Beautiful. My dogs, I'm not going to let them in. They may come in and bother me. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But all right, well, let's begin. What I'm going to show you today is a kind of a summary in a certain sense of some classes that I've been doing online. Some folks I see, like, for instance, I see Robert, for instance, is in this class already. So some of this material is going to be a bit of a repeat for some folks. I apologize for that. But let's see what the heck we got here. Let's get going here now. All right, now I'm going to share this. All right. Everybody see that? Okay, cool. I've got you guys all over here on my right side. So, all right, this is that. Okay, good. Okay, so this is called New Ways to Score the Picture. Okay, this is New Ways to Score the Picture. And this is coming out of, as I said, I have some course. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. I'm doing some private courses, group courses. Um, online. And I'm doing a series of three of them. I've done two already, and it's been really successful. We have 30 students per class. Some of the folks, as I said, in the group have done it. Anyways, we've had a lot of fun with it. And this is part of the material. Here, of course, this is Michael Giacchino, right? This is us. I'm playing a live concert in Los Angeles. He doesn't normally conduct the orchestra, but this time he's conducted. He has his blue suit on because this was the music for Fab Four, and it was sort of a kind of a fun thing. So what we're going to look at today, as much time as we can. We may not have too much time. We may have more than enough time. These different ideas: modal writing, Riemannian theory, some chordal harmony, whole tones, pandiatonicism, aleatoric music, 12-tone music. Now, the question of questions. Oh, before we get to that, if you have a question, right, then uh, raise your hand and or put it in the chat. Okay. And at that time, Aaron will politely interrupt me and say, "Hey, Norman, there's a question," because I can't monitor all that kind of stuff. So, but if you have a question, please, don't hesitate. It's not a big deal. Okay. I just want to show you all. This is my new class. This is a new class that you'll all eventually get an email from me about. Trust me on that one. But this is a class that I'm starting in January. Okay. And this kind of shows you a little bit of what I'm trying to talking about. These are five classes, 5-week classes with 2 weeks apart. They're bi-weekly classes. And they cover, this one is covering, as you can see, compositional skills, compositional materials. Um, it's not just geared for media, right? The class I've been doing now has been primarily media. This class is not for media. This is basic compositional practice that I think would be very useful to most people that I know. So you work on one piece throughout the whole 4 classes. The beginning class is how to write a melody, how to create a memorable melody, and different approaches to how to harmonize that melody. So that would be the first week. Then 2 weeks later, we're going to discuss how to develop and vary that material. that you have, right? And so you will do that. And then each class, you send me back your assignment, right? I will then look at your assignment and send you back personal notes on it. We don't do it in classroom space. And then the third and fourth class, I've picked four different composers for us to look at. I've analyzed, and I will be analyzing sort of their compositional approach. One will be Rimsky-Korsakov, right, the father and the instructor of Stravinsky and that whole school. So that's going to be the romantic approach. And then we're going to have Aaron Copland's Appalachian Spring Clarinet Concerto and his writing, that simplicity that's very popular in modern music and film music to a large degree as well. And then we're going to look at Debussy-La Mer and his compositional ideas and how he puts the group together and what he does compositionally. And then we're going to look at John Adams, right? The minimalist, fantastic master, Short Ride in a Fast Machine. How does he create those cross rhythms? How does he create that? So each class, you'll be applying these ideas to your piece, and then you send the piece to me. And then the last class is sharing the material. Last class, everyone shows one piece of music and shares it with everybody. So that's what I'm doing, or one of the things I'm doing. Also, by the way, if there's anybody in Greece or near Thessaloniki next week, I'm going to be in Greece. I'm doing a workshop there. Uh, it's a little bit late, I know. But anyways, if anybody happens to be near Thessaloniki, send me an email, come and say hello or join the workshop. Okay, we're going to start with modal writing. Um, Modal writing is varied. There's not one kind of writing with a mode. Like some people say, I'm writing in a mode, I'm writing with modes. Well, what do you mean by that? There's different levels. First of all, you can write a purely modal passage where the piece is harmonized with chords of the same mode and the same tonal center. So the whole piece is a D Dorian, right? That is purely modal, right? We're not changing the mode and we're not changing the tonal center. You can also have pieces that have the same mode with different tonal centers, right? You got a piece in D Dorian and E Dorian and F sharp Dorian, right? So we have we're changing the modes, but we're keeping with different tonal centers, right? You can also flip that around. You can have pieces that have different modes with the same tonal center. So we can have a piece that's C Dorian, C Phrygian, C Locrian, C Aeolian. Okay, so the similarity there is the tonal center. So similarity can be the mode, similarity can be the tonal center, and we can have pieces with mixed modes, of course. We have pieces with C Dorian and G Lydian at the same time, right? There's no rules in the book that say we can't do that. And all of these different approaches can be and should be experimented with. So here's some of the examples we're going to look at right now here. We'll get to them, just about 5 different examples. Here are the basic modes. Everybody knows this because you're all so smart and you're all graduates of Film Scoring Academy of Europe in some way. And so, yes, even you, Philip, you know this stuff too. He's very surprised. Yes, thank you. So these are just our 7 most common modes. Here are some modal song examples. Many of you probably familiar with this, but like Ionian, Let It Be, The Beatles, Ode to Joy, Beethoven, uh, D Dorian, or I'm sorry, Dorian, right? It's more of a folk mode, right? We use it for folk. Also great for adventure scenes. Horse with No Name by the band America. Toccata and Fugue by Bach uses it quite a bit. It's also in jazz scales, it's used for the 2 minor 7 when you do 2-5-1 progressions. The 2 is a Dorian mode. Phrygian, that's the minor mode with the lowered second. White Rabbit by Airplane, Radiohead, Pyramid Song, some examples. Lydian, right, it can be dreamy, right? It's very bright. It's the most brightest mode, in a sense, we say, with the raised fourth. Flying Theme from E.T. Petrushka has got a lot of Lydian elements. Jazz players like to use it when they're playing dominant chords, right? We have lots of beautiful extensions on top of these. I don't know if we can hear that. You know, you can't hear that piano, can you?
It's not coming through very clearly
No, I
now.
know, I know, I know. Um, all right. Well, if I keep playing, I have to turn on the Zoom thing. I'm not going to bother with it right this second. And of course, that's so that's the Lydian. Then we have Mixolydian, right? Norwegian wood, Sweet Home Alabama. That's what's used for jazz scales for the five chord, right? And in the 2/5 progressions. Aeolian is our minor keys. And then Locrian is rarely used. It's very unstable, right? But it can be used in some different situations. Now, here's a piece of mine I'm going to start out with, right? Now, these are cues that I've done, all 1 minute long cues, right? That's what I'm doing with my classes these days. We don't need more, really. 1 minute is, you can get a lot said in 1 minute. So this whole cue is D Aeolian, and I do a median modulation. What do I mean by median modulation? I mean, median is by thirds, right? So median modulations are very popular in contemporary music. Why? Because they're bright. It's a bright change. Usually there are some common tones. Like if you go from C, let's say you go C major to E minor, right? You have a couple of common tones, right? So you have some common tones. The scales have some common tones and some new pitches. So you have new color. It avoids the movement of 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. So it avoids the dominant sound. It's bright and it's interesting sound. So I did this very lightly, right? I'm using guitar. Here's the music. I'm going to play you the cue first, and then I'm going to show it to you with the film. Now, for those of my students, all of you all who make great mock-ups, this is not a great mock-up, right? This is a no performer mock-up. So my apologies for the quality, but it gets the point across. So it's all Aeolian, right? And at this point over here, this is the scene where character is wandering, and it's the end of Star Wars, and they're going to meet Luke. So I have a treble recorder to give sort of a folk sound, right? I have just horns, a little bit of percussion. I have 12-string guitar, again, to give sort of a folk-like sound. And I have my strings. The strings, actually, I'm going to have to stop this for a second and turn on the keyboard because this is bothering me already. Okay, we'll go back to it now. All right, so we can hear this, right? Right, okay, right. So we've got the strings, right, are doing a simple little movement, right? To, the top strings, the violins, to give a little bit of motion. The guitar, of course, gives a little bit of motion to it as well. And I have my harp filling in glisses at significant points. So all in one mode, all in Aeolian mode, right? Here is the scene, and watch it. And there's no dialogue in this scene, so it's very placid. It's a very quiet scene. There's no tension at all here. Not sure why that one harp note lasts so long with that. So again, modal writing using modes for just for one particular mood and purpose. Here's an example from Tom Newman. This is Shawshank Redemption. It's very ambiguous. We have this bass line, right? Sort of sounds like a C mixolydian, right? The melody sort of implies it. If we had time to study a lot of Thomas Newman's music, we know that he uses modes quite a lot. right? He loves the modal sound. He likes to be ambiguous. He likes to let the listener have a little bit of its own decision making, and he works with directors who like that sound. So very rare for him to establish a real key center very strongly, right? He likes to, as I say, he likes to allude to different ones. So here is just my little bit mock-up of this. This is kind of a passacaglia, or it's ostinato, the bass figure. Each voice comes in, it elaborates his melody. The only harmonic change we really have is it's a median modulation. Right here, this is measure, let's say, called measure 8. It goes up a minor third, as you can see here. And this has to do with a picture element. So this is sort of a kind of a synopsis of the cue. And he does have the D major chord, right? I have a D major chord in my reduction, and he has that as well. So harmony can be implied and it can be pulled away. Elmer Bernstein, the great score, right, To Kill a Mockingbird, it uses the Lydian scale, right? We have the raised fourth in the melody. It gives a haunting kind of a sound. He also, interestingly, there's two melodies that go against each other in this opening cue, right? And the melody here, which is, has got a G sharp. So if it was just a D natural, it would be dissonant. So by having the Lydian here, it works better really with this counter melody that occurs throughout the piece. One of the great scores, really beautiful score. Gymnopédie. Now here's an example. We all know this piece, I think, right? Eric Satie, the French composer, right? Really was untrained. Well, actually, he did go to the Paris Conservatoire. I don't think he graduated, but he went there. But he was basically a club pianist. That was what he did in his life. He worked in the clubs, and he never orchestrated his music. I don't think he knew how to orchestrate his music. Debussy orchestrated one of the Gymnopédies. Ravel, I'm sure, did some work with him. But this style, right, is very influential. We hear it a lot in the kind of film Nordic noir we have now with Max Richter and all. That kind of a style. It comes back again. It's very, very popular. So this is all Mixolydian, right? It's G Mixolydian, F Mixolydian, B flat Mixolydian. It's all, we have varied tonal centers, but one mode that runs throughout the whole piece, right? That's what gives it its connectivity. You dig? That's what makes the sound of it. And that, in a sense, that makes it easier for the composer. They're deciding, I'm just going to use one mode, right? And I want to show you something that I think is kind of fun. This is the ending scene to a movie. How many people have seen this movie, My Dinner with Andre? Anybody ever seen this movie? 1758 has seen it. Okay. It's, as you can see, gosh, it's almost 50 years ago. It's a very fun movie. It's basically just two people talking. And this is Wally Sham, the actor, and his friend is this very exotic guy. And as his friend tells him about, it's Andre, as Andre tells him about his adventures, it just keeps getting more fantastic and fabulous, right? And it's just hilarious because Wally, is this typical New Yorker, and here's his friend Andre, who's going to Brazil and Bulgaria and all these exotic, crazy places. So, but Gymnopédie number one is used in the end of this, and I want you to just watch how beautifully the use of this music does to give us a feeling to match the mood of what's being shown us in the film.
All the other customers seemed to have left hours ago. We got the bill, and Andre paid for our dinner. I treated myself to a taxi. I rode home through the city streets. There wasn't a street, there wasn't a building that wasn't connected to some memory in my mind. There I was buying a suit with my father. There I was having an ice cream soda after school. When I finally came in, Debbie was home from work, and I told her everything about my dinner with Andre.
So haunting, isn't it? Really, it's hypnotic. The music is hypnotic, right? Is Satie the first person to use music as a hypnotic element? No. I mean, it goes back. Well, it goes back to prehistoric man banging on the drums and singing. But certainly, everyone, all the way back to the Renaissance, understands the power of the hypnotic element in music, right? And how it takes away the listener, it takes away the player too. Trust me, right? So it's just how it's done. So that piece, the similar modality, the similar rhythm, right? The similar texture, right? The repetition. Satie doesn't really develop his material really like we think of in normal, lots of development of it in terms of elaboration, ornamentation. Okay. Now I have a cue that I'm going to show you now that uses one tonal center, C, with three different modes, right? This scene, some of you may know, it's a Bulgarian clip it's the beginning of it, where there's a, it's called After Death. There's a man watching from a window into a courtyard, and it has three parts to it. Right, the first part, he's watching. We don't know what he's watching, but he's watching. Then he sees a woman come in, right, and he's kind of high. She looks at him, right, and then he sort of hides, right, and then the woman walks out of the picture, and then the ending, we realize that this is this old man's dream as he's dying, right, in bed. Okay, so I have it in three sections, right? It's strings and harp, right? So the first part, I use a lot of lush chords, right, with a slowly ascending melody with harp, okay, because this is, it's just kind of a light mood, really. It's kind of a happy mood. The second part here, I'll show it to you here. So we begin here with this cantabile melody that I have a kind of an interesting bass line that's a descending bass line against this. I'm using my violas for my chordal rhythm, right? And my violas kind of playing a little bit of the rhythm. There's not a lot of rhythm in this opening section. I have a little bit of harp playing a descending Lydian scale, as you can see up here. At this place is where he sees they have eye contact. So now it becomes a happy dance, right? I made it in a Phrygian dance, kind of like a gypsy style for solo violin, with a lot of ornamentation, a little two-beat kind of a feel, because I think that he's sort of happy now that he sees his wife, I guess. Could be his daughter, but I guess it's his wife. And then the end, when he's in bed, it's Locrian mode. And I use some nice touch 4 harmonics, right? So I really want a high register change at this point. Modal interchange, using one tonal center with a variety of modes. All right, now here is an interesting piece, right? This is written by Francois Poulenc. Now you can see this is an ostinato. What he plays in the left hand, which is right, that's ostinato, continues throughout the whole piece. Right? We can call this ostinato a B flat major, right? No reason not to call it that, right? But on top of this, he varies the modes. We have F mixolydian, moving then to C major, back to F mixolydian. Then we have a D flat pentatonic episode, right? And then here, this is sort of E flat pentatonic, back to mixolydian, and then he ends with a total kind of a clustery kind of extension chord. Let's listen to this. And it's a beautiful piece, one of my favorite pieces. It's used in a movie by Alfred Hitchcock. So if anybody knows it, they can raise their hand. Some of you who have been in my classes know it, but anyways, listen. So, who knows what who knows what movie this is in? Nobody? Robert knows. Okay, tell us, Robert.
Rope.
That's right. It's used in Rope, my friends. And here is, oh, wrong button. Here is the scene from Rope. Anybody know this movie Rope by Alfred Hitchcock? Okay, if you don't know it, you should watch it. It's not a great score, really. I mean, there's very little underscore, really. There is no underscore, really. The only underscore is really this, right? So, but I want to play this. Now, we've all heard this. We've all heard the piece of music, right? That's the way it's supposed to be played. Now, it's actually, when you listen to that performance we just heard, is some beautiful things, right? Where he goes, the first time the repeat, he slows down a little bit. And the second time when he goes to the coda, he also, bum, ba-da-dum, there's a little pause. It's beautiful, really. It's very musical, right? Beginning a new idea. So it doesn't sound robotic. Now, this movie is very clever. And I'm going to tell you something without giving it away. You see this box over here. In this box is this man's friend. The opening of the movie, these two guys kill their friend. Right in the opening of the movie. They strangle him with a rope. And their goal is to get away with perfect murder. And on top of that, they invite his girlfriend, or let's call it his fiancée, his parents, his friends, and to this dinner party. And so they want to be even sicker, right? Even more diabolic, right? And get away with it. But the mistake they make is they invite Jimmy Stewart, who is their college professor. And Jimmy has a hunch something is up. So this is the scene. Now this cat over here on the left, I forget his name, the character's name. He's a concert pianist. And he plays this piece. So this is an example of diegetic use of the music, right? He's playing it in the scene, and you'll watch. They begin at the ending chord. They begin the ending chord, and then they go back. And it's not exactly the piece, but watch also as the tension mounts in the scene, and Jimmy starts playing with the metronome. The tempo starts fluctuating. So it's very interesting use of pre-existing music.
Is she still harping on her table and how awkward it is to serve from this? But it's really much more convenient, you know. Because this way, people don't have to go all the way into the dining room to get their food and come all the way back here to eat it.
Seems to me they've gone all the way in there now for their dessert and coffee.
Mrs. Wilson, please serve the guests. Don't lecture them.
We did get up on the wrong side of the bed, didn't we?
I'm in quite an embarrassing position.
How do you mean?
Well, I seem to be the only one having a good time.
You and Mrs. Atwater?
What's going on, Philip?
Would you mind turning that off?
I'm sorry.
I don't like to play with light in my eyes.
You know, Philip, I get quite intrigued when people don't answer questions, and quite curious.
Did you ask me a question?
Yes, Philip, I asked you a question.
Well, what was it?
I asked you what is going on here.
A party?
Yes, but a rather peculiar party. What's it all about, Philip?
What's what all about? Now stop playing crime and punishment, Rupert. If you want to know something, come out with it. Otherwise...
Oh, no, temper. Now, don't stop.
I'd like a drink.
Oh, wait, I'll get it for you. Now, keep playing. What would you like, Scotch?
No, brandy.
You're very fond of that little tune, aren't you? You know, Philip, I wish I could come straight out with what I want to know. Unfortunately, I don't know anything. I merely suspect. I said that
I heard you.
That's all right.
Thank you. That's fine.
You use this?
Sometimes.
I thought only beginners did. I must say...
All right, Rupert. I'll ask you. What do you suspect?
Oh, I've forgotten. Where's David, Philip?
I don't know. Why?
Brandon knows.
Does he?
Doesn't he?
Not that I know.
Oh, come now.
I don't. Why don't you ask Brandon?
I have. But he's too busy maneuvering the other 2 points of the triangle. What for, Philip? Just what is Brandon trying to do with Janet and Kenneth? What's the matter? What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
What am I so far off the track?
There's nothing going on at all, Rupert.
You're, more than usually allergic to the truth tonight, Philip. That's the second time you haven't told it.
Thanks. When was the first?
When you said you'd never strangled a chicken.
You're confused. Brandon dreamt that up for the sake of a very unfunny joke.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't, Philip. And if you'll think back very carefully, you'll realize that I know he didn't. About a year ago, I was up at the farm, you remember? One morning I saw you display your handiwork. You're quite a good chicken strangler, as I recall.
Well, I just meant that Brandon's story wasn't true. I didn't mean I hadn't killed any chickens.
That's what you said.
Well, I didn't think it was a suitable topic of conversation while we were eating.
You could have said that.
All right, I didn't.
We're not eating now, Philip. What'd you lie to me for?
Because I don't like to talk about...
About what?
I
Strangling
can't play with that thing.
I want you to have them very much.
It's extremely generous of you, Brandon. I don't know.
Please, I know you appreciate first editions far more than I, Mr. Kentley.
It's really very nice of you, Brandon.
What's wrong?
You and Philip must come to dinner very
What's
soon.
wrong
I'll
now,
get
Philip?
David to fix
Do
the
you want
day.
Mr. Kentley to have the
Called
books?
right a
No.
while ago.
I mean, I don't care if he has them. I just...
What?
No
What?
word from David.
I just think it's a clumsy way of tying them up, that's all.
David never had any trouble taking care of himself.
I know, but I cannot understand this. Whenever he's been detained before, he's telephoned.
So that's the rope that's used to strangle Philip in the or David in the beginning of the movie. So that's a classic use of that score. It took me probably 40 years to figure out what piece of music that was, because I've seen this movie since I was a young kid, right? And I loved that music. So now we know that it is Poulenc. Okay, let's move on, hey? So let's look at some other things. Neo-Romanian transformations and chordal harmony. So we move on. What is Neo-Romanian theory, or called NRT? It's a framework, it's a transformational theory, right? It's an analytical approach, right? It can be used as an analysis method, and it also can be used as a compositional method for yourself, okay? It was devised by Hugo Riemann back in, let's say, I don't know, 1850 or something, who was a German theorist. And he wanted to figure out how to explain the chordal movements that we see in Wagner, right? You couldn't really use common practice Roman analysis, Roman numeral analysis. So he came up with some of this framework. And then 100 odd years later, in the middle of the 20th century, film composers started using it, right? And then the book Music for the Movies, right, by Lehman, right, also uses it again, and it spiked a lot of interest. Okay, so we have a couple of examples. Here's a little bit of the details on this. We have 3 basic transformations. Now, I know this is kind of deep theoretical stuff. I'm not going to beat it too much, but the thing to remember about this is that it's stuff that we're already doing. It's stuff that we already do. So a parallel transformation is major to minor, right? The third changes, right? So we call that a P, right? The second one is a relative transformation, right? That's changing C major to A minor, right? 2 chords that share the same key signature, relative, right? And it's changed, right? We move right? We move the fifth up a whole step, right? C major to A minor, right? Okay, the third one is a leading tone transformation. That's changing from C major to E minor, right? Leading tone because the C moves down to the leading tone B of C major, right? Okay, and so all of these progressions we already use. We already know that these chords are connected. On top of that, we have a few other ones that are common and that are useful transformations, okay? Here, as you see, I explain a little bit more where this thing kind of comes from. Okay, so now this T2, what does that mean? It's kind of cool. What T2 means transposition by 2 half steps, right? It's just again, it's an analysis. If I have a chord from C to D major, that's a C2 because it's up by 2 half steps, right? If I have C2. If I go C major to B flat major, that's C negative 2 because it's going downwards, right? Tritone is C6, right? We go from C major to F sharp, right? That's a C6. That's 6 half steps going up, half of the 12 tone, half of the chromatic scale. So as I said, we have the P, we have the L, the P, the L, and the R. We also have what's called a slide, right? C major to C sharp minor. The third remains the same. This is for major. Now, when you look at minor, a lot of these things are all inversions of each other, right? Some of these is we're going to get to in a second. So we have the slide. We also have what's called the near fifth. It's a 1 major to a 4 minor, right? That's in major. In minor, it would be a 1 minor to a 5 major, right? Which is sounds like basically a minor chord. But in the major, it's quite interesting. What piece uses that? For instance, this piece. Right? Leia's theme is exactly what John Williams does. He's got a 1 major to a 4 minor, right? And the poignancy of the minor is really what gives it that progression, its a particular sound. We also have what's called a far fifth. So it's a 1 major to a 5 minor, dominant. Excuse me, a modal kind of a chord, like. So we don't have the dominant sound, right? We don't have the B and the F. It's not a dominant chord in that sense. It's dominant, but it's a minor dominant chord. We also have what's called a hexatonic pull, which is chords that are related by thirds, right? Like C major going to A flat minor. No common tones, right? Common tones are important, aren't they? Right? Common tones are connecting chords, connecting pitches between chords. All of these examples, you can see here, there are common tones. Right? Here's the near fifth. We have a C is the common tone. The root of 1 becomes the 5th of this chord. The second one, the 5th of 1 becomes the root of the 5 chord. You dig? Now, hexatonic, there are no common tones. What does that mean? That means the progression is more brilliant. The progression is more chromatic sounding. All right. So, and the last one is just a dominant kind of a progression that sometimes is used in the analysis. So what is the purpose of all this? The purpose of this is to help you understand perhaps how chords and triads relate to each other. This is what's called the tonets. This is the basic grid that this Neo-Riemannian world lives in. When you look at these going from right to left, these are all moved by fifths or fourths, right? B flat to F to C to G, right? So all the horizontal axes are perfect fourths and perfect fifths, right? When you go up and down, you have minor thirds and major thirds going up and minor thirds going down. Upwards would be minor thirds, downwards are major thirds, right? Triangles over here make triads. You see here, FCA, going over here to E minor. It's very easy to see minor seventh and major seventh chords by just enlarging this triangle system, as you can see here. And you can see dominant, diminished, and half diminished chords, again, by just expanding out the triangle to a different pitch. So what is the usefulness of this? The usefulness of this is, let's say you want to do something like this. You want to go from C major, to E flat minor, right? Okay, no common tones, right? Right, so that's a kind of a cool, pretty wild, right? Something scary is going to happen, right, in that progression, right, or is useful in that progression, right? So you want to figure out how you're going to get there. You want to figure out what's the simplest way, let's say, using some common tones to get from these two sort of detached chords. So now, when I use a plus sign, I'm using major. When I use a minor, it's minor, right? And I like that. That's kind of, Lehman does that, and it's kind of hip. So C plus is C major, E minus is minor. Okay, so we begin C major, and our first transformation is we go to E minor. We flip the triangle over. You dig? We have C, E, G. The C flips over and becomes B. We have two common tones, right? We've got these two common tones. Two common tones, obviously, between 1 and 3. We know that, right? So this chart shows us. So we have two common tones. Now we're here at E minor. We're E minor. Now we flip the triangle over again with just one note in the middle to become B major. Right? E minor becomes B major, right? We have one common tone. We have the B. So this guy flips over, right? The G and the E become E flat and G flat. They go down a half step. And harmonically, we're at B major, aren't we? Right? Okay? And this is called a near fifth. I have all the kind of text, all the terminology here. So now we're at B major. Sorry, B major, right? And now we go from B major, right, by flipping the triangle over again to become E flat minor. Right? We got just by moving the B to B flat, right? By flipping this guy from B, again the triangle flips over, with two pitches remain the same. So that shows us the progression. And if you were going to write a piece of music, this would be very useful, wouldn't it? Right? I mean, I can use my E and G. I can have, let's say, horns play this E and G. My melody is shifting from a C to a B. In this transformation, I have just one common tone, B. Let's say I have the basses playing a B, where I go from E minor to B major. And then over here, I've got these two common tones, the E flat and G flat. Again, I could play the violas, horns, synthesizers, whatever it is. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of an oversight on some of the Neo-Romanian transformations that get to be quite involved. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Here is a little bit of some more information that you can read, kind of explaining this. We're going to move ahead. Now, what do I have here? Some of you have seen this before. I'm calling this Hollywood chord progression secrets. It's not a secret. It's really not a secret. Philip knows them. If Philip knows it, it's not a secret, right? Pablo knows it, it's not a secret, right? But anyways, these progressions are useful in writing your music. You dig? They're useful. And the response that I have, this is my response. So if I go from C major, protagonism, hero. Now maybe you listen to that and maybe it doesn't sound like a hero to you. Well, then your response is something different, right? The response is subjective. The response, this is my response, right? Conmigo. This is me. But you can have your own responses to these things. But they're very useful, okay? And I wrote a piece of music, the next one I showed you. I used these ideas. Now, some of these show you the transformational toolkit that we're talking about here, right? This is tritone. We go C major, C major to G flat major. No common tones, but that's outer space there, baby. Right? That's a great chord that we hear a lot of as this opens up the heavens, or a planet, cruises by. So this is useful to a lot of folks, right? So maybe when you get a chance, you can take a screen capture of this or whatnot. You can do a little research on some of these progressions. Okay. Here is Danny Elfman, right? The wonderful Danny. And this is all tritonal transpositions, right? Why does this work so well when chords move by tritones to give us a feeling of alien encounters? Well, first of all, the distance between the intervals are very remote. It's as remote as possible, isn't it, really? C major to F sharp, right? We're as far away as we can. There's a lot of voice leading possibilities, very wide voice leading, not smooth, right? Because we have no common tones. We're dividing the octave in half, and the function is very unclear. Okay, so let's take a listen to this. So he actually ends where he begins. He begins on B flat, right? A B flat 7 chord, and he ends on a B flat as well. But he goes through all of this space to get there, right? And obviously this is over the top, right? It's very melodramatic, right? Danny's having fun. This is a comedy, right? That's why we have the theremin in there. We have all, and the voicing is so wild, and we have woo, choir making all these sounds. But the progression also is useful. Max Richter, Waltz with Bashir, right? We all know Richter, right? Now this is there. When we look at this piece, it looks like it's in G minor, right? We start on G minor, but it's really not a G minor progression, right? We're going to G flat by the second chord. Over here, we're going to D flat. So it's not a G minor progression. How does this work? The reason why this works, even though we're just using major and minor chords, the reason how this works is by the similarity in the movement. Also, we have a bass movement that's moving downwards. So the bass has a movement that's going from G minor down to G flat, right? Down to F, right? Then down to F minor, right? Then down to E minor, right? And then down to, again, going down, again, going down. So we're moving downwards. Plus, we also have this movement here all the time of the melody. Right? Gives it shape. here's a cue by a composer that many of you may not know, Shirley Walker. Shirley Walker, I happened to work with Shirley for many years. Shirley, interesting story. One of the first women, one of the few women, let's put it that way, to get involved in film music early on. She left it. She had a family. She came back. She became an orchestrator. She was Danny Elfman's orchestrator. She was Hans Zimmer's orchestrator. I worked with her in the movie Black Rain, which was an early Zimmer. She was orchestrator. Then she became Danny Elfman's orchestrator for a long time. And then finally, before she died, tragically too young, she ended up doing this cartoon, Birth of Batman. Now, what's interesting here, and the reason why I show this to you, is this demonstrates how composers will mix different harmonic concepts. The opening this is very non-concentric, right? It's non-functional at the beginning, right? It's dissonant, right? It has really no tonal center that is functional. The second part goes to B flat minor, right? Second part goes to B flat minor. So all of these things that we're learning today, or that you're learning in many places, we mix and match, right? We don't have to just keep them only one piece only. Sounds a little bit like Elfman cue, doesn't it? A little bit at the end there, the gothic part to it. So here's a cue that I did that uses these Hollywood chord progressions, right, and the transformations to catch different moods. This scene is from Harry Potter, right, and this is really a wonderful part of it where it's called Tale of Three Brothers, and these three brothers are crossing a stream and they come across death, right? And each brother sort of makes a deal with death. So when you're scoring it, you have to catch each of these different vibes, right? You got to somehow reflect the different moods that the brothers represent. So I begin with a simple little far fifth, the C major to the G minor. So because the beginning of it is just simple, it's kind of calm. Then the first time that we meet death, I do this hexatonic. I go one minor to a flat six, right? So it's evilness, comes death, there comes evil. My motif is repeated, right? I have a motif here, as you can see. I'm sorry, it's a little small. Right? Then I repeat it the second time here, right? I bring in a little bit higher register in the material. So that is my second section. The third section here, when he meets the first brother, I go the one major to this four minor that we talked about, right? Right? Because it's a little bit peaceful in the first part. Then I transpose the material. I go back to hexatonic, change the meter to 5/8, start featuring a little bit of my brass for the ending, and the very, very last part, the third brother sort of makes a deal with the devil and ends up getting the best bargain of all of them. So let me just play it, and then I'll play you the video. I don't want to play that one. All right, screw it.
Before they could cross, however, they found their path blocked by a hooded figure. It was Death, and he felt cheated. Cheated because travelers would normally drown in the river. Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the three brothers on their magic and said that each had earned a prize for having been clever enough to evade him. The oldest, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence. So Death fashioned him one from an elder tree that stood nearby. The second brother decided he wanted to humiliate Death even further and asked for the power to recall loved ones from the grave. So Death plucked a stone from the river and offered it to him. Finally, Death turned to the third brother. A humble man, he asked for something that would allow him to go forth from that place without being followed by Death.
So, using transformations, using my Hollywood chord progressions chart, right? Using the same material and trying to subtly change it. Chordal harmony. Let's talk about this one. It sounds like a kind of a difficult concept, but it's really, really not. Here's some examples. Chords by fourths is been used for a long time, right? Not every harmony has to be chords by thirds. We can have chords by fourths. We can have chords by seconds, secondal harmony, right? But right now we're talking about chordal harmony. Where does it come from? It comes from sort of maybe something like, or sort of a chords like, sort of resolution to a triad. Medieval polyphony used chords of fourths a little bit more. So we create chords by fourths by putting fourths on top of each other, right? Depending how you voice them, you can get away from the fourth sound. So if you want to have fourths, then keep them distinct, the intervals. You can push them like this to be in 11ths. You can push them together to be 13ths. You can push them on top of each other where it ends up sounding, right? It ends up sounding like a cluster, okay? When you have a 5-note chord, you end up with this minor pentatonic scales, right? Which is a really kind of a hip sound, very jazz sound. We'll see an example. Now, this is interesting, and this, please everybody listen to this part. This is kind of cool. So when you put your cards of fourths together, you see, you have some choices. The first one are two perfect fourths. See, fourths can be dissonant or fourths can be relaxing. And that's why when you're doing chordal harmony exercise, you want to use the fourths when they're perfect intervals, which is kind of a resolution sound, and then you want to use when you change it to augmented intervals. So our first choice is two perfect intervals, two perfect fourths, right? D to G and G to C. Our second one is a perfect interval and then an augmented on top, right? That's just all we got, right? Our third example is augmented and then perfect, right? That's D, G sharp, C sharp. If we do D, G sharp and another augmented interval, we end up with another D enharmonically. So that ain't gonna work, right? It's just a repeat of the pitch. So you only have these three ways to stack the intervals of the fourths. That's really what it is, right? Now, when you put them like this, right? When you voice them like this, right? Which is the fundamental way. You can also re-voice them, right? You can put it like this where you have a seventh. You can also put them like this where they have a ninth, right? Sixths and thirds. So you can move them around to cause different intervals, right? And when you put them in chords of fifths, you can take this stack and you can put them in fifths or you can put them in sixths. The key to remember is if you want to have the fourth sound, if you want to have the chordal sound, and any which way, you've got to keep those intervals wide. If you push them together too much, you start to lose the chordal sound, okay? When you go to 6 notes, the B and the C end up being a minor second on the end, right? So you have a dissonance in there as well, right? and you can put all 12 together, right, before you get one repeated. Okay. Now, when you use chordal harmony, you actually end up leaning in the direction of using octatonic scales, because when we use the perfect augmented number 2, we end up with this octatonic scales, right? The octatonic scale is a whole step, half step scale, whole step, half step, right? We have 3 of them, right? That we have different combinations. We have whole, half step, and then we have half step, whole step, right? These are the combinations of these scales, right? They're built on diminished chords. They're built on 3 different diminished chords pushed together, right? They also, octatonic scales are also called diminished scales because they have the 3 diminished 7th chords, right? Now, they're very useful, right? But you have to also be a little bit careful that you don't get musically kind of claustrophobic, right? If you use them only without any sort of mixing up other colors. Here's an example by Honegger, the Swiss composer, right? That's using chordal harmony, right, in the melody, right, over an ostinato in the bass part. The bass part, right? Again, that's an ostinato through the whole piece, right? Bitonal. This piece is definitely bitonal. Wow. Each layering each idea on top of each other, right? This is a 100-year-old piece, my friends. And this sounds like it could be something, you know, that it is very, very current, isn't it? Okay. McCoy Tyner, right? We got to listen to a little bit of jazz here, folks. I know some of you don't like jazz. I know Philip, for instance, he doesn't like jazz. But Philip, you've got to listen to a little bit of jazz. Yes, it's you. Okay. So now, when you have sus chords on the, you know, in the harmony, you can often use pentatonic scales, as I mentioned you before. So this McCoy Tyner was the great pianist who worked with John Coltrane Quartet. Outside of having his also a famous, you know, very long solo career, right? He was very well known for having these fourths in the left hand, as you can see here, and he really established this sort of sound for many years, and lots of pianists moved on with it. Let's just listen to a little bit of this because it's so cool. It goes on, right? Okay, just give you a little flavor of it. Okay, here's John Williams, right? We go from, yes, oh, Aiden likes it. Yes, I love it too. I love it too. Yes, I do. I met McCoy Tyner. I heard him play. I met him one time. Very, very gentleman, a real gentleman. So here's John Williams, another gentleman. Even though Dimitri doesn't like John Williams. I don't know why. Right, Dimitri? No, he doesn't know. He likes John Williams. I'm teasing you. All right. So check it out. What we've got here is we've got octatonic scale, right? Most of this is using the octatonic scale, this scale. Right? We're using the octatonic scale with the alternation whole and half steps. Also, note that how it evolves. Notice how John also increases the orchestration, increases the dynamics, and also increases the tempo of this cue. Fantastic cue. So he finally gets there, doesn't he? Finally gets there at the end. Here are all this wonderful Jerry Goldsmith composer. We all know him from Total Recall. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is that all eight triads from the Octatonic collection are used. But what I want you to look at and listen to is, you see, most of these chords here: D major, D minor, D major, B major, etc., like this. The bass line is really establishing a whole sense of, first of all, it's a independent line, and the bass line actually gives a lot of the chromaticism to this passage. Right? Now listen to this. Oh, here's a piece that I did using octatonic scales and diminished chords in this one. This is, here you can see I use the 3 different augmented scales or octatonic scales in this. It's kind of hard to read, I'm sorry, but basically this is a video game clip, right, of people fighting. It's done very stylized and it slows down quite a bit. It's a little hard in some ways to line things up. But I begin with the first scale, as you can see here, starts on D flat. I go to D natural here. I basically, this whole cue motivically is built on this idea that I have up here in the flutes. Right, again, just using this octatonic scale. So all of this motif is here, this motif is here, this motif is here, this motif is here, right? This motif comes back here again, right? This motif is here. So the whole cue is really built motivically on this fragment, right? But I add quite a bit more elements in this one. I also have a synth bass that is quite present in this cue, right, to give us a little bit of that sound. Let's listen to it first, and then I'll show it to you with clip. The horn sounds like a siren. Now the ending is just chromatic scale. So I broke out of the octatonic world, right? As I said before, sometimes you have to, because you start to sound a little musically claustrophobic, right? If you stick to it too relentlessly. So here, just watch this clip and see how the music works with it. Boom. That's about that one, eh? Okay. Here's another one, right? This is using chordal harmony and the octatonic scale. So this is a cool clip. This clip opens up where Daniel, this is James Bond. Oops, sorry. He opens the room and it's quiet. So it's calm in the beginning. It's obviously James Bond, so you know something may be up. So I use the open fourths sound. So I use the open fourth as a sense of relaxation, right? As you can see here, I use perfect, right, for this opening part. I also using some alto flute, right, and a little bass clarinet. So I have kind of an interesting sort of a warmer sound for this opening section here. Here I go to the augmented perfect, right? I've got augmented and I've got a perfect fourth, right? Because the bad guy comes jumping out of the bedroom. So fighting begins at this point. The fighting continues here when I go into 5/8, when they stumble into the bedroom and they're really struggling. Again, I changed my octatonic scale here, as you can see. I go up to one that starts on D, then I go the one that starts the third scale here that starts on E. At this point, this material is all pretty much built, you know, on a scale of your material, right? It's not really thematic as much as this scale and this rhythm sort of implies and keeps everything rocking and rolling. So let me play it for you first, and then we can, what's going on here? Well, since we're running out of time, let me just play you the clip. Bond takes care of him pretty easily, huh? Okay. So let me show you a little bit more. Well, we have, I know we don't have, only, I think my limit is 90 minutes is what we're going for, right, Aaron? So I'll try to cover some more material within that time. I don't want to keep people too long. Whole tone scales. Whole tone scales. We have two whole tone scales. Right, we have two whole tone scales, right? We have augmented chords, augmented triads that come from this, right? We have tritones, three tritones. There's no strong tonal center. This is used for dreams, for wonderment. Can also be used for danger, for tension. Very useful sound, right? Here is one of the great composers, Leonard Rosenman. Many folks may not remember him. He worked in the late 50s and 60s. Very chromatic composer, right? He was sort of worked in this period of time before we had a lot of pop music came into Hollywood, right? It's before that period of time. So very strong, chromatic, much more harmonically, let's say, advanced than we often have even today. So this shows two uses of the chromatic scale, of the whole tone scale. He uses a whole tone scale here as a gliss to get from one section of the clip into more of a transition section. So this is sort of like a dream use. And then he stacks it all on top of each other here at this end for a stinger chord. The beginning of this cue is basically very tonal, right? It is tonal. It's a perfect authentic cadence into C major to all these 2/5 progressions, right? But here he moves out of it. And one other thing that's interesting, notice this section here. We've got this B flat, B natural movement that we see over here. We think of as just being not important, but this B flat ends up being the anchor to this chord, right? So it just shows you that composers don't waste a lot of material. They don't do things that are just without a lot of forethought. This is from the movie Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean.
It is for me too.
I love you, Jim. I really mean it.
Well, I'm
music, right? Very old, but certainly really very, very workable. Debussy explored all the modes, as we know, right? This whole prelude is all built on the whole tone scales, right? I just have a little bit of analysis here. You can listen to this one on your own. It's beautiful, and you can see he uses this material. This is the first motif, Z, right? He also has Y, this little rhythmic motion. He also has this melody. Right. So he has about 3 different motifs that he uses throughout the piece. Here's one I did using a whole tone scale. This is the cue called the Lab. So most of you know this if you've been at, most of you know all of these, I think, if you've been at FSAE for a minute. This is a tricky little clip, right? Because it starts off, we don't know what's happening. You can go a little too much tension too early on this one. So the way I started is I just start with an E pedal in the basses and the timp, and I have a bassoon solo that's using the whole tone scale. Right? So a bassoon just gives us a little melodic kind of a contour. We don't need a lot. As the tension builds up, we get a little bit more nervous. I have the harp, as you can see, becomes our engine. Right? The harp starts playing this whole tone scale in its own sort of. Right? So it starts playing this whole tone scale to give us, again, we need a little bit of movement. Celeste comes in 1 beat off, so it's sort of in a canon, right, with what's happening before. We have a little bit of horn material here. All of this is building here. The ending, we bring the bassoon back in again. We have some ending finally, a climax in the cue. For those of you remember it, I have a glista highest pitch, and I have the horns doing a run up, a rip up to this 3rd beat. I don't know what else you could do on the ending of this thing, really. You kind of have to hit it pretty hard, really. It's a real surprise ending. I think we should maybe pause here. What do you think, Aaron? To be continued?
Yeah. If you want to continue, you can, and if you'd like to stop, we can as well.
I mean, be continued. I probably got another hour worth of material here.
Wow. Okay.
So, I'm saying maybe to be continued at another point.
Sure, of
course. I don't want to keep people. Do I have any questions? Anybody got any questions or any comments that they'd like to bring up now? You've been a really good group. Everybody's sitting so nice and quiet. Let's do this. Let's finish this off another time. What do you think, Aaron? Because
perfect.
I want to rush through it. As I say, I've got a lot more material. Only about half of this really is what we did today, right? And so rather than rush through it, what happened to me? How come my face is gone here? Can you guys see me? Why am I blacked out?
No.
Can you see me?
No.
There we are.
No, yes.
Okay, there we go. I hope this is useful, right? I hope this is useful for you all, right? I hope it kind of gives you some new ideas. Really, that's really the course. Really, is new ways to score. It really comes from all the time I work with students and trying to get some new harmonic ideas out there. Oh wow! Look at all those people applauding. Hello. Is that your class, Philip? All right.
Yeah, it's my undergraduate music theory class, so you're kind of blowing their minds right now.
Well, you got a easy class there today, then, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, man, no lectures, so all good.
All right, well, that's groovy. Um, but listen, it's wonderful to see you all. I see a lot of friends that I know. Um, I'm going to talk to Aaron when I get off the line, and we'll try to schedule this again. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, for sure. Part
Yeah,
two.
yeah, we'll do part two. Now, listen, I'm going to put this video up there in the YouTube, right? And it probably will be there. Well, by the way, a lot of this material is going to be, flagged, I think, by the YouTube computers, the audio stuff, right? John Williams, etc. I don't know what it'll come up with, but my material obviously won't be, and the text material won't be. But I will send you the link. I'll send everybody the link, or Aaron will have the link. And I hope everybody's doing well. In the fall, some exciting things going on. And I'm not sure. I'm going to talk to Aaron. I'm not going to wait that long to do this. We're going to do it again. Certainly this year. Certainly going to do it this year. Probably when I get back from Greece, we'll do uh, a continuation of this. And other than that, just everybody be well. It's good to see everybody. It's good to see people. So adios, au revoir, a biento, sawadikap, konnichiwa, you know, kaksi. Well, that's a hello, right? All sorts of wonderful things. But it's lovely to see everybody. Be well. Thank you for your attention. Arigato zomas. Thank you for your attention, and love to see everybody. So hayongaseyo, and we will all see each other again soon in this thing. Probably, maybe a month from now. Right, a month from now. How does that sound? Before we get into the holidays, right? The pagan holidays that we all have to go through in the end of the year when everyone gets so crazy and wild. But we'll try to do that before that time. All right, everybody. Cheers. All right, bye. Yurko. All right, Yurko. Yeah, good to see you. Dimitri, good to see you. Ooh, to you too. All right, Aaron.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm going to just remove these few folks who are still hanging around here. But
Sure.
all right, Francisco's gone. Bye, Dimitri.
Bye bye, Norman.
Bye. Good to see you. Bye, Yerko. Um, get rid of him. All right.
Hi, thank you very much for
You're,
this
you're welcome.
class.
My
Sometimes
pleasure.
looks like something base, like all the people know. Of course, all the people know, our composers know we have modes, but sometimes refresh all this information also help to that point,
See,
Like I have that ascent, I don't know how to do, I do another. Yes, and now I have to know. Just come back to the foundation sometimes.
oh, see.
It's very nice.
All right. Well,
Foundations for called foundations, but it's more than that. Thank you very much,
well,
really.
gracias. De nada, vale. Hasta la vista. See?
Hasta la vista.
Ciao. All right, Aaron. So good. So we had a nice crowd, huh?
Yeah, nice turnout. Lots of people.
I'm going to stop the recording.